Thank you to Ubisoft for giving me access to the game. I've played Star Wars Outlaws, the brand new Star Wars game from Massive Entertainment and Ubisoft. To figure out whether or not it's worth playing, you can have fun without any lightsabers or force powers, and if you should pick up this game now or wait until later. So let me show you about my time with Star Wars Outlaws.
Do it.
The game starts off with a super tense opening introducing us to this smug asshole, Sliro, who promptly monologues and commits some off-screen murder. Well then, this then puts us in the shoes of our main protagonist, Kay, Vess, and the lovable sidekick, Nix. After some brief intro dialogue, we step outside and are thrust into the world of Star Wars. In the first few hours of the game, I did the following. Spent 10 minutes looking for credits to continue the main quest, stole some scan docs and got in trouble, proceeded to break into Sliro's vault inside his big mansion, completely messed that up and stole his ship and immediately hyperdrive to the nearest planet, crash landed on Tashara, title card, and got attacked as soon as I woke up. Took out 3 enemies gunslinger style, nice, hopped on a speeder to the nearest town, immediately gambled and played 40 minutes of Sabak, more on that later. Stole from the Pike Syndicate, got a password for the black markets, found some vault cars, betrayed the Pikes to help Crimson Dawn, then immediately betrayed the Crimson Dawn, made a boatload of credits, and had a lovely spot of lunch with Nix at a local bar, all without leaving the first planet yet. Whilst we're taking a quick breath, make sure you click that subscribe button so you can see more content like this. That is just a small snippet of how my first couple of hours with Star Wars Outlaws went. The game throws you headfirst into the Star Wars underworld, and it captures this feeling incredibly well. It does this by cramming every interior of the game full of detail and experiences, and it's quite frankly one of the best outings in the Star Wars universe when it comes to satisfying what I wanted as a Star Wars fan. Every new area you visit, I would go straight to the cantina and sit and experience it all, and totally not find myself in the nearest sabacc table. And when I say I got addicted to this game mode, I spent about 4 hours playing this game, and I need to get myself the real version to play at home. From story to gameplay to the open world, Massive has injected the Star Wars DNA into every aspect, and I love it. It's one of Outlaw's brightest aspects, and if you are a Star Wars fan, you will not be disappointed.
Like a benta.
Outlaws at its core is a heist story. You gather a crew who are in less than ideal situations to pull off one big job. It's filled with crime, betrayal, chase sequences, action, but most of all, it's a fun story. My personal highlight is ND5. This boy is a badass.
How do we make this work?
You don't betray Jalen, and I don't blast you.
So you're my babysitter.
If that is what you want to call it, fine.
The problem is that this game has some narrative shortcomings in the early game, which makes it a very slow game to get into, and I can see why many people have bounced off of it. But I can promise you that it comes together in the game's final act. There is a lot of heart here, and there's a lot of different characters that I really enjoyed, but despite that, it felt disjointed due to how the player has the option to tackle the main quest in 3 different orders. When it knuckles down and puts it into a game that is more linear, it really shines. Massive seems to have taken the open world formula of other Ubisoft games and finally evolved it, or for a better term to be used, remixed it. There is no towers that unlock a whole region and you are not bombarded with map markers from everything at the start. It's organic and refreshing to break up from what we've already seen. You actually feel like you're a part of the world and what you're going to do, rather just going from point to point. Go to a cantina, overhear 2 NPCs chatting about a stash, and you get some intel acquired of a location that you can go to on your map. There are magnifying glasses on the map in these hub areas that you can go to, or you can completely ignore them. I felt the need to do this because the new locations that we went to were quite interesting to see, and it's not forced. I felt like I was interacting with everything because I wanted to, and not just because I had to. What I can't deny though is how absolutely beautiful all of the areas look, even the sandy barren area of Tatooine, and this applies to all of the areas that we visit. Tashara is a beautiful open world planet that has these rocks and these open plains. Kimji is a tight snowy planet with lots of layers. Akiva is this jungle planet in the mountains, and it has these water systems that you can drive around on. And then, as I've just said with Tatooine, it feels very boring to explore, probably because as a Star Wars fan, we've been force-fed this planet for years in every single piece of media relating to Star Wars. Outlaws also boasts a pretty interesting syndicate system, which features a number of high-profile names such as the Crimson Dawn, the Pikes, and the Hutt Cartel, featuring the big slug himself, Jabba. There is also the Ashiga clan, which was created solely for the game, and it is also a welcome addition. Your reputation with each will sway throughout the game. You will get to the point where, like I did, where there's kill squads that will come after you if you let it go too far in the red. And it's a neat balancing act that you'll go through, doing story missions, and it'll affect your reputation there. There will be rewards that you can get for hitting max rank, and you'll be able to get into different areas easier if you have a higher reputation with, for instance, the Pikes. You can just walk around freely in their hideouts. But there isn't really any massive consequences in terms of the story, depending on who you are aligned with. There aren't any turf wars going on between the syndicates. There's no real massive impacts that I would have liked to have seen, and it kind of feels like there's a bit of untapped potential here. It fits well in Outlaws because it plays into the Star Wars experience of the criminal underworld, but it's a little bit too safe, which isn't bad, but it doesn't really go for the moon like I would like it to do. Outlaws combat and stealth is super basic. Compared to today's modern standards, the stealth system is pretty simple, and the most you get out of it when you go into combat is your blaster pistol and fists. There is some progression due to experts in the game that offer upgrades and bonuses for completing challenges, but the impact isn't as staggering as I'd like. And the stealth system, the reason I say it's so basic is because all you have is a simple distract mechanic and going up and punching things in the back, and sometimes you'll go into areas where it's forced stealth. You have to stealth all the way through it, otherwise it'll reset you back to certain areas. It's frustrating and it's clunky, but continuing the theme of something good and something bad, it feels like a 360 PS3 era game in terms of its combat system. I found myself remembering the first Uncharted game and how basic that was with its melee and its gunplay. Outlaws reminds me of this a lot, even down to the climbing and the traversal sections that we go through in the game. Does this hamper the experience though? I don't think so, because when it works, when it goes into more of a linear offering like we do in the last act of the game, it feels right. It works in the way that it's supposed to. When you get some of the experts challenges completed in the game, things feel a little bit better, but that doesn't take away from the first half of the game feeling frustrating and clunky. There's a lot of potential here that I feel was left on the table. For the sake of talking about visuals and performance, the game ran pretty well for me. I was playing on performance mode on the Xbox Series X. I was hitting a solid 60 FPS at all times, and the visuals held up pretty well. I had very little bugs throughout my playthrough as opposed to what I've seen online. Visually, the game is simultaneously one of the best looking games I've played with one of the worst looking facial animation systems I've seen in a while. There's a lot of really good pre-rendered cutscenes, and a lot of the facial animations are good in the main story quests, but in the side stuff, things all have a little bit of jank to them. It just made me laugh because there's a distinct difference and a polarizing experience between both levels of quality. Outlaws is a game that shoots for the stars, pun intended, and brings a lot to the table. A massive, ambitious open world, and a pretty fun Star Wars experience. And I think they've nailed around 75% of this game. Every system is just good enough to not be bad, but it never really hits the high points it needs to be truly great. I enjoyed my time with Outlaws, and I can certainly say this is a good time without force powers required. And I'm glad that this game exists to provide a subtle difference from the Jedi series. Giving a final verdict on the game is tough because I'm split in two camps. I don't think I can recommend Star Wars Outlaws right now at its current price point. I do think it's worth picking up in the future to experience it and have a great time in a Star Wars game, especially for Star Wars fans, but I just don't think at a full price this is worth the pickup. I do think in the future we will look back on this game rather fondly, and it offers something different to any of the other Star Wars games that are currently out there. I will certainly be checking out the DLC in the future because they have at least a year's worth of content planned for the game. But there you have it, my final view on Star Wars Outlaws. Thank you once again to Ubisoft for providing a code to the game to be able to review it and bring it to you guys. Very much thanks to them. And hopefully this video has been insightful and helpful. And if it has, leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new. And as always, this has been Jimbo, and I'll see you guys next time.